Hello and welcome back to the Blackburn End Podcast. It's our Behind Enemy Lines feature, and as you'll see, I'm not on my own. During this busy festive period, we are delighted to have a guest who will give us an insight into the opposition for Leeds United upcoming game tomorrow as we record this. Do you want to introduce yourself and just let us know where we can find you and your content?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Mark. I appreciate the ask. My name is Jer. I look after the Leeds United The View YouTube channel and podcast. So it's a daily Leeds news, tactical breakdowns, match previews. So probably very similar to everything you guys are used to watching here. But yeah.
Great stuff. And obviously, it's not that long ago that we played Leeds United, but it's a lot can happen in a short space of time, I think it's fair to say. So, Joe, just giving us a bit of an insight into the first half of your season as a whole, and then looking at sort of how we think you might. You've obviously had a lot of transfers, didn't you, over the summer? How's that affected you, and how you think that might affect you going into January?
We've had a decent season. I mean, we're top of the table at the moment, so it's easy to say that. But it's probably been a season that's grown progressively over the year. We didn't start the season great. Daniel Farke's sides in general don't tend to open seasons in very good form. It takes them about 10, 11 games to really start to get into their stride. And we've kind of seen the exact same thing with Leeds this year, but had enough to be in and around the mix of the top 3 or 4. And now that they've tried to kind of starting to find a good rhythm. Nice bit top of the league, but the summer was a strange one. There was plenty of money there. We had an awful summer last season with a takeover and an owner who was trying to leverage Elland Road against buying Sampdoria, and then players just leaving everywhere. And that was kind of the excuse for the poor start to the season last year, and accepted by most people. This year kind of felt a bit different. It was a bit more stable. Farke had a full year. We just missed out on the promotion with the playoff final. Didn't expect all the players to go. I think we thought we'd lose one or two of the bigger players, but we'd be okay. And I think the PSR issues kicked in just before the June deadline, and the only offer on the table was one for Archie Gray to Spurs. So off Archie went, and that was the end of that. Luckily, got a good fee for him. But then Jorginho Rutter was the one that really kind of hurt fans in Chris Somerville. That's your two most impactful players last year. But it was more a case of what Leeds could do to reinvest that money. And the current recruitment team that we've got, we have Nick Hammond, who got involved with Newcastle after their takeover and brought in some really good players for them. And he's been excellent for Leeds, bringing in some probably players people haven't heard of, but have come in and made a massive impact. Largi Ramazani, who used to be at Manchester United's academy, was playing in Spain. He's come in and was excellent at the start of the season. Out Tanaka we got from Dusseldorf in the second tier in Germany, and he's probably been the best player we've signed in quite some time. His passing ability in the middle of the park is phenomenal. So he's been brilliant. So it's just taken a while for all the new players to come in and gel. There was a big overhaul of players, which wasn't expected. So again, kind of upset the start of the season, but very much now a squad that has far more depth than last year's squad, but possibly lacks the individual talents that we had probably last year.
Yeah, and I think we saw that and felt that in the game at Ewood. It felt that there was times last season when I saw Leeds play and when they came to Ewood, and we saw obviously Elland Road, and you feared that they could rip you apart if they really wanted to. People like Somerville, that quality. There's some times where you just have to hold your hands up and go, there's not a lot we can do about that. It did feel a little bit, and obviously the game panned out like that it was more, we were more able to contain you if we were really solid. And that might then be something that you found difficult to break down. Personally, I felt you moved the ball far too slow. You made it quite easy for us at Ewood. Obviously, you're top of the table. Has that been a pattern of your season, in terms of games, if teams are sitting in?
We saw a bit of this last year as well. There was a lot of criticism of Daniel Farke's ability to break down a low block. And the view was, we've got all these talented strikers and talented attackers, but if a team sits in deep, we can't get past them. And we lost games last year. Stoke and Rotherham last year were two games that really derailed our season, just purely because we couldn't break down teams and we got caught with a sucker punch. And that was a huge frustration this year. It's been a little bit different. It's still a problem. Low blocks still cause us issues. We still struggle to move the ball quick enough. Your point about slow tempo is huge. And anyone that watches my channel are sick of me saying tempo when it comes to Daniel Farke's side. True. Leeds are very much a possession-based side, but when you're playing against low blocks, you need to get around them as quick as you can, or get from one end of the park to the other end before they set into their shape. And Leeds have been very pedestrian about how they play football at times, more so away from home than at home. but it has been a pattern for the first part of the season. It seems to be starting to sort itself out. We've had finding a way to win has been the big kind of thing that a lot of the fans have been saying this year. Looking at Sheffield United, they've not been great in games, but they win them 1-0 or they nick a goal somewhere. We haven't been able to do that. Over the last couple of weeks, we've started to see Leeds being able to nick a goal. The Derby County game being a prime example recently, where we just needed to do something in the last couple of minutes to get a goal, and we did. So it's kind of fixing itself. But I think teams are starting to come out a little bit more against Leeds and try and nick something. I think teams can see that if you can get a counter-attack or a break against Leeds, you can overwhelm the defence and you can get a goal. Like Leeds, especially on the road, they've nearly conceded a goal every game. And when they concede first, they really struggle to win the game. But when we've scored first, I think it's 60 games Farke has had where Leeds have scored first and not lost. So that's a big factor. If we get the first goal, chances are we're winning the game. If we don't get the first goal, it can be a real slog for us. And that's been a over the last 2 years, but slightly improving at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that is my view going into this game. Obviously, we've had 2 games against yourselves under Eustace, 2 very different games. They both ended 1-0, but I think the game at Elland Road was very much, we were doing everything we could to survive at that point. It was very much 10 men behind the ball and try and hit you on the counter-attack. I didn't feel like that was the case at Ewood Park. I know Joe Roden did and made a few comments that, that
I didn't like those comments either, by the way. I criticised him for those comments, and I said that felt very much like, they won't let me play football. Why won't they let me play football? Kind of thing. And it's like, you need to just get over that, Joe, and get better.
Of course you do. And I think that, Arsene Wenger used to get criticised for that all the time, didn't he? But I think those comments, I could have actually understood them last season at Elland Road. Yeah, I mean, you've still to get over it. But in the game at Ewood, I actually thought it was quite an even game. I thought we controlled the game. We let you have possession. Absolutely, you have more of the ball. But I think the way that you move the ball as well kind of played into our hands. But anyway, we'll come on to the next game. So going into the season, you obviously lost big players. What were your hopes going into the season, and what are your expectations as we sit right now?
I think I said at the very start of the season during the summer, front and centre from the start, no excuses this year, get promoted. Don't care if it's first or second, but get in the automatic spots. We just don't do well in playoffs. So get into the automatic spots and get promoted. The squad is good enough. The backing has been there. Even though we've lost players, we've brought in players as well. The squad should be strong enough to get up. The question marks have been around, can this manager get the best out of the players? There's been a split in the fan base with Farke. The large portion don't like his style of football, again, because of the more often than not slow nature of it. The other half are, he's the best guy to get us up, and let's just stick with it and we'll see it. We'll look at it next year. But the expectation has been front and centre from the off. And there's been a bit of, because of Leeds, what was a poor away record coming into a couple of weeks ago, fixed it a little bit. But because of that, there's been a lot of kind of fans not happy with necessarily how the season was going. At the moment, everyone seems okay because it's starting to fix itself and we're top of the table, but the expectation will still be an automatics by the end of the year. January is going to be a very important time for Leeds. They didn't strengthen properly last year. They brought in Connor Roberts on the last day, the window on loan. That was all that they did. And then the March international break happened and Leeds came out of it with 4 injuries that really impacted the rest of the year and fell off a cliff and failed to get promoted because of that. So they need to do smart work in January. They're a bit light at centre-back, probably Max Verber, who's not really convinced whether he's a Leeds player or not, if he wants to be here or not. So there's a possibility he could leave. They need another centre-back. They probably need number 10. They were after Smolix in the summer. Unfortunately, didn't get him. But they probably need number 9 as well. So there's still a little bit of work that Leeds will need to do. And fully expect Sheffield United, Sunderland and Burnley to strengthen yourselves as well. You've had a fantastic run this season outside of your last couple of games. So all those teams will strengthen and Leeds have to do the exact same. But the expectation will be get promoted. And if it's champions, fine. But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. In terms of Blackburn, then you've touched on us there. What's your thoughts on how we're getting on this season and any memories of playing us? Don't worry, we know that they're probably good memories. That tends to be what sticks in the mind, doesn't it?
A couple of the 4 trees from years and years and years ago.
Yeah,
growing up the young for watching those games. So yeah. I think you've had a really good season. I think a lot of it is down to your manager, your coach. I think John Eustace is a fantastic coach. I think he proved that last year at Birmingham when they made a ridiculous decision to sack him. And look what happened to them on the back of that. You've benefited from that. He did a good job at the end of last season. The game at Elland Road was very much a snatch and grab by you guys. Yeah. But I agree with what you said about this season game. I thought you didn't play a low block against us. You played a mid block. And Leeds should have been able to get around that if they were good enough, and on the day if they were focused enough, and on the day they weren't. And even on like the expected goals for that game, it was pretty much dead level. Like it was 2 versus 1 or 1 versus 2, 1.5, 1.8. So there wasn't a huge amount between the two sides in that game. And Eustace has the hoodoo over Daniel Farke and Leeds. He's played Leeds 3 times. He's won 3 times. And Daniel Farke only has 1 win over John Eustace. He's got 3 on the other side. So Farke has to break all the hoodoos this year. The away record, winning 2 games on the bounce away from home, was a problem. He's just done that. That one's been parked. The next hurdle, and I've been saying on my channel, the next hurdle is to get past John Eustace, because he hasn't been able to do that. And one of the things that stood out last year for Daniel Farke's management style was when he came up against Southampton and Russell Martin always seemed to know how to beat Leeds. And 3 times they played them last year, and 3 times Russell Martin won, Elland Road way and in the playoff final. So whether Farke can adjust his system, figure out what Eustace does, that's been such a problem to him, and get over that will be a big challenge. And that's the key thing that we're looking for, is can he get a result against John Eustace? Because that's the worry. Not so much Blackburn, more a case of John Eustace will set this side up, and he'll know how to capitalize against Leeds' weaknesses, and he'll know how to get in behind them when they need. And if Blackburn are to get anything out of this game, because Leeds' home record this year is phenomenal, it'll be breaks, it'll be counterattacks and maximising set pieces. And if you can do them right, you've got a real chance of getting something.
Yeah, I think it will be more akin to the game Elland Road last year, if I'm being honest. But just to give you some comfort, we are missing our left back. So Owen Beck, who great loan signing from Liverpool, has actually been doing really well on the left-hand side of midfield. He will have to go back to left back. And Harry Pickering, who does such a good job at left back, is really solid, knows when to slot back in and make it a back 5 when you're defending. Harry Pickering's out, and so's Lewis Travis, captain, loads of energy, and with nobody that can replace him. So Lewis Baker's more than likely going to start. Decent footballer, but we have not got a like-for-like
history with us as well,
Travis.
Baker. Got a brief history with Leeds. Didn't play a lot of games, but was here.
Yeah, but I mean, John Eustace has been a real surprise to us. Nobody really knew what to expect. I think the pessimists amongst the supporters thought it's going to be a do not lose approach. He came in and did that at the end of last season. We were thinking, please don't carry that on. That's absolutely not what John Eustace is about. If he can get at teams, he'll get at them. But he's got an identity in terms of everybody works hard and they want to create chances and they'll get stuck in. But actually, he's not one of these managers who's too arrogant that just won't adapt to the opposition. And if he sees a weakness in the opposition, he will adapt to them. We don't have Sammy Smodics as we did last year, so getting that 1 chance and 1 goal is also a big chance. So I'm not as confident as I was at the game at Ewood. But in terms of yourselves, how do you think the game will pan out? How do you see it sort of in terms of patterns of play and then that all-important prediction?
A lot will depend on what Daniel Farke does with his midfield, because the injuries we got at the start of the season to Ilya Groove and Ethan Ampadu, they're 2 naturally holding midfielders. They're not attacking midfielders. And both of them went out of the system, and he was forced into a situation to give out Tanaka a starting berth earlier than he wanted to, who can play defensive midfield, but is more of a standard number 8. And Joe Rothwell, who you guys will know quite well, who's a box-to-box player and likes to get forward. So it went from being an out-and-out defensive midfield pairing to a pretty attacking midfield pairing overnight. And I've loved it. I've loved watching the 2 of them since they've come in, because Joe Rothwell, for me, is our tempo driver. When he gets the ball, if we're a bit flat or a bit slow, he just bursts into space with the ball and it just picks everybody up. And I love that about him. I think he's been a really important player for us. But what Daniel Farke does with those options now, because Ampadu is back. He played Ampadu and Tanaka against Derby, and it was a strange midfield that wasn't great. Okay. Whether he plays Rothwell at home again for more attacking options, but Leeds tend to attack faster, earlier, and with a lot more players at home than they do away from home. So there will be a difference in how he played against you guys in Ewood Park. But that midfield pairing will be a big factor on that if Leeds decide to go with Ampadu and Tanaka, likely to be a more defensive-minded, deep-sitting midfield, but the fullbacks will go high. But if he goes with Rothwell, it's likely to be a far more attack-minded midfield. So that, to me, will dictate how Leeds play. If it's the other 2, it could be a slow enough tempo. But if it's Rothwell and Tanaka in there, it could be a pretty fast game, and they'll look to get forward very, very quickly. Leeds fullbacks play really, really high. They will, more often than not at home, be the highest 2 players on the pitch. The wingers tend to tuck inside and be a bit deeper. And then you'll see Brendan Aronson, if he starts the game floating around in the 10 position, comes quite deep busy, will press fast, press high. Same with Mateo Joseph if he plays in that game. But Farke's got a lot of options this year, and a lot of how Leeds play will be dictated by the decision he makes on individual positions. He's got 2 options pretty much per position, and they're all very different profiles of players. So he can really change how Leeds play just based on a couple of changes. So for me, I think Leeds will go with a more attack-minded approach in this game. I'm not sure if it'll be Rothwell, but they will definitely look to attack him much faster. The first 10 minutes are massively important in Leeds home games. They've been really, really strong in the first 10 minutes. If you guys can survive that, you've got a chance. But Leeds have some really, really fast attacking options. He rested Dan James and Manor Solomon during the week against Derby. It's likely the 2 of them will come back in because they're probably our most effective midfield wing pairing. But he's got Larry Ramazani and Willie Nanto as a backup option there as well. So we're very well stacked in those 2 positions. So I think he'll go with the faster options. I think he'll start Joel Pirro in the game as well. So I would expect lots of whipped balls from very tight angles into the box as well. So yeah, first 10 minutes will be key for you guys. Be really, really big. And if Leeds can get a good start, I have Leeds down for a 2-0 win, but I'm an eternal optimist. So I'll always go for a home win. And we've only lost 1 game all season at home. And that was a mistake. Manor Solomon fell over the ball and Burnley broke and scored. That was it. Outside of that, no one really. Opening day of the season was a draw, was against Portsmouth. It was a crazy game. But outside of that, nobody's laid a glove on us in Elland Road. So have to see how it goes. But I would expect a stronger performance from Leeds.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see the game going, to be honest. I think your pace in those wide areas will expose us. We've been exposed the last couple of games. Our fullbacks like to come within the width of the box, and then the 2 sitting midfielders sort of shuffle across and block any space between the lines. That's not been happening as effectively without Pickering and without Travis. They've been really exposed out wide, and I'll be honest, unfortunately, as much as I would like to predict a win, I can't see it for us on this occasion. In terms of Joe Rothwell, it's good to hear he's doing well. Got a mixed reception at Ewood last time. I think Rovers fans did really like Joe Rothwell. Exactly the reasons you were saying. When there was not much in a game, he'd just drive between, beyond the lines. He'd break that press occasionally, just liven things up. I think Rovers fans fell out with him a little bit because he ended up going on a free. But that wasn't so much his fault. The club turned down 4 million for him in January from Bournemouth because they were above us. And then he's gone on a free. So who can blame him? Okay, so just remind everybody, where we can find you and all your content. Because honestly, our fans love going across, particularly after a game, obviously if they win. But it's just good to get that opposition viewpoint, isn't it? And think, did we play well today? Was it the opposition? What was going on? So yeah, if you just remind everyone where we can find you.
Sure. The YouTube channel is Leeds United to View, and Blue Sky is IJR Lynch, and the same on X as well for the channel. And then I have a channel on Big Up as well for watch alongs as well, which is LU The View. So yeah, in all those places.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That's really, really interesting and a great insight. We will obviously have more content out this week as much as we are all interested in the game at Elland Road. I'll be honest, an awful lot of Blackburn Rovers supporters just want that one done because the game on Saturday is taking a lot of their attention. Hopefully it doesn't take all the players' attention, but Rovers fans, I'm pretty certain to a man would swap an absolute battering at Elland Road for 3 points on Saturday. But yes, remember to like and subscribe. And like I say, more content will be coming out as we head towards the derby against the Dingles. Thank you very much.